Welcome back. You're watching Sea Tranquility. But it's me, it's Davy from the Monsters Den. So, never done a solo video on here before, but plenty on my own channel. Now, some people have commented already on Pete's videos saying, where's the Brian Wilson tribute? Pete's not a Beach Boys guy. So he knew that I was. So he's asked me to do a quick 5 minute, 10 minute um, tribute to Brian Wilson, as we do for all the luminaries who are even ships in the night, passing through the tastes of Sea of Tranquility and its many, many different types of genre that we like to celebrate. So, I've been on 1.5 million Beach Boys videos, of course, not on here, but on Grant's Rock Warehouse on my own channel, dormant as it may be. As you can tell, I've got Beach Boys stuff behind me and beside me, and we can go into that. And I'm wearing literally a sunflower t-shirt. The Beach Boys, one of my favourite bands of all time. Brian Wilson, born 1942, would have been celebrating his 83rd birthday next week, was a visionary, a titan of music, of course. There's no real tribute to be paid to someone like Brian Wilson other than to say, go and listen to the music, put some music in your day, to paraphrase a great Beach Boys song. But, and we won't go into the darker stuff. We're paying tribute. So we're not going to talk about Dr. Landy and we're not going to talk about the breakdowns and whatnot. The early singles, absolutely essential stuff. If you haven't heard those early singles, inspired very much by the surf sound of the time, meets the harmonies of the Four Freshmen, Brian's favorite band of the era, then you need to go back and hear those, Be True to Your School and Little Honda, and right up to this kind of 64, 65 period, much better as a singles band. The albums are very patchy and padded out, and some tracks don't even have a single Beach Boy on them, even Brian, especially the first couple of albums, lots of instrumentals and whatnot. So check out the early singles. Um, Don't Worry Baby, probably my favourite early single by the Beach Boys. But certainly, if you aren't well versed in the Beach Boys, of course, the big place to start is Pet Sounds, isn't it? It's Pet Sounds. It's just a masterpiece. Doesn't need any more commendation. So rather than say that, go a little bit before Pet Sounds. If you want a full album experience, head to Beach Boys Today and Summer Days and Summer Nights, two albums that came out the year before Pet Sounds. And you can hear the evolution of Brian Wilson. You'll start to hear, wait a minute, this is the Brian Wilson we hear about for California Girls and that famous intro, which is almost classical-like in its composition, inspired by Rachmaninoff of all things. Very ahead of his game in terms of thinking about music and seeing music as almost pictures in his head that he could visualize, and how to achieve that, and then bringing in the Wrecking Crew because the band themselves weren't going to be able to realize this vision that Brian had in his head for a bigger sound. And about this period, of course, about the time of Today and Summer Days and Summer Nights is when he starts the friendly rivalry with Paul McCartney, where they're trying to one up each other. And it's a bit of a misnomer because the Beach Boys were never going to make Sergeant Pepper's, and the Beatles could never have made Pet Sounds. So it's, why pick when you can have both? So of course, Brian Wilson achieves the masterpiece that is Pet Sounds, but it does not do well commercially in America. Massive hit in the UK, but it does not do well in America. Capitol are not happy about this. So Brian, the follow-up becomes the legendary Smile, or doesn't, rather, because that aborted sessions all fall through. Things start to bleed through onto the follow-up records where Brian takes a step back. And again, we're not going to go into the substance issues and his withdrawal and whatnot. But Brian takes a step back, and Carl Wilson comes to the floor, and Dennis Wilson comes to the fore, and Al Jardine starts to write a bit more, and God bless his Mike Love even starts to do a little bit more. A couple of years after that, Blondie Chaplin joins and Ricky Fataar joins, and etc. etc. This album, for example, Sunflower. is a terrific Americana album, something that you wouldn't really associate with the Beach Boys. If you'd only heard the big hits, you wouldn't associate them with a sound akin to the band Creedence Clearwater Revival. You can't really hear that, but you can hear it if you listen to Sunflower. Just as if you listen to the stuff with Blondie and Ricky in a couple of albums' time, you'll start to hear almost Poco-like sounds and things. It's very, very on trend by the time of Holland and Surf's Up and things like that. Which, again, they're in various box sets. I mean, here's the Phil Flows box set with the Sunflower and Surf's Up sessions. There's a great series of twofers which collect all the Beach Boys albums up to the mid 80s. So I recommend jumping on those if you can find them. Just capital twofers with loads of great bonus tracks. Brian retreats from the Beach Boys, had stopped playing with them live in the mid 60s, but did return with a fanfare. Welcome back, Brian, with the album The Beach Boys Love You, which is a Marmite album, as we call them in UK. You either love it or you hate it, Marmite. I think it's a genius album. It's an album that inspires a lot of indie rock and indie pop. It's been cited by members of REM and They Might Be Giants as being seminal on their work. I don't want to go into too much depth on any one thing here because, it's just a short tribute to say, hey, check out some of this stuff. So yeah, check out The Beach Boys Love You because it is very much a portrait of where Brian Wilson was in the mid 70s, doing tribute songs to Johnny Carson. And believe me, it's bloody weird, but it's a fun listen and a deep listen on side B as well. It's fantastic stuff. I truly adore that album. And again, we're going to skip through the bad stuff and we're going to come out with Brian's solo stuff. If you haven't heard Brian's solo stuff, his debut album, just called Brian Wilson, is fantastic. It's overproduced, but it was the late 80s, so we'll let him away with it. But the songs from it abide. So songs like Walk the Line, Melt Away, and of course, Love and Mercy, which on my own videos on my channel always sign off with Love and Mercy. So that comes straight from Brian. Straight from Brian. If you don't like that overproduced sound, his next record would be very stripped back, almost his MTV Unplugged. I don't want to call it greatest hits because there was a lot of deep cuts called I Just Wasn't Made for These Times in 1995, produced by Don Was. So jump on that. But then in 2004, he finishes Smile with Van Dyke Parks, his writing partner for that project, and tours it, and it becomes a great success. Releases it in an album, it becomes Uncut's album of the year. I think it was Rolling Stones number two. Phenomenal record. In 2011, we get the actual Smile by the Beach Boys, or as close as it would have been actualized at the time. I saw Brian on that tour doing Smile in its entirety with a greatest hit set accompanying it, on top of seeing him a couple of years later doing Pet Sounds in its entirety. So, that'll do. With the great band, of course, the Wondermints, his once pickup band who'd stuck with him forever. And with the Wondermints, he made some phenomenal albums. Smile, of course, check that out, his version of Smile. But they made an album which I think is one of the most underrated things Brian Wilson was ever involved with, called The Lucky Old Sun. So Lucky Old Sun from 2008 goes back to that kind of Smile feel, but it's a concept album about Brian's life in Southern California. And it uses Lucky Old Sun, that old standard, and kind of little snippets of it throughout, pop in, pop out, in between these great originals. Midnight's Another Day, and then I'm Going Home, which is stunning. It's a great song, which is very autobiographical or biographical, I guess, because the lyrics were written by one of the other band members. At 25, I turned out the light because I couldn't handle the light in my tired eyes. And now I'm back, drawn straight through clear blue skies, which is very much Brian Wilson's story. At 25, he did step back. Things weren't good for various reasons that, again, we don't need to go into. You can read up about that or watch the wonderful film Love and Mercy with Paul Dano and John Cusack. And then he did come back and draw clear blue skies again. because they had that tremendous comeback and he had a series of great albums. There was a great George Gershwin covers album in 2010. There was even a decent Disney covers record in the key of Disney in 2012-ish. A kind of me and my friends album that every Asian pop rocker has to do at some point. No peer pressure, that was called. Loads of great stuff from Brian, but I can't recommend enough. Check out the 70s Beach Boys with Brian. So, although, yeah, Carl, Dennis start to do a lot more, that early to mid 70s, Brian still contributes a lot to their sound. And don't miss the late 60s either. So, Smiley Smile and Wild Honey, terrific records, absolutely sensational records, which, again, if you want full reviews on all these, go to Grant's Rock Warehouse. Grant Arthur, of course, long-standing member of the channel now. We covered all those albums on there, so please check those out. Brian's legacy is going to live forever. I mean, good vibrations, California girls. Wouldn't it be nice? I get around. God only knows. Come on, that was on space of about 18 months. Unreal. So it's a sad time. We've lost a titan. We've lost an absolute titan of music and of pop culture. But we get to celebrate an absolute titan of music and pop culture. So, Brian, thank you very much for absolutely everything you did over 82 phenomenal years. You did okay, buddy. You did okay. So, everybody, this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're here on Facebook. Usually, I'm not used to doing this stuff. So get onto Ko-Fi below and tip Pete because he knocks his pan in for all this stuff. So give him a wee tip. Let us know your Beach Boys memories, your favorite Brian Wilson stuff, and give Pete a break when somebody passes away and it's not really his jam. Come on, he can't love everything, know everything inside out. Folks, thanks very much. I'll see you maybe on the Monsters Den next week. We're doing toys. I'm not sure my taste in toys aligns with what people on this channel want. You know, I'm kind of 90s kids, not 70s kid. Although I don't look at the very young and dashing still. Thanks very much, folks, and well, stay tuned for whatever Pete's got to offer, depending on when this goes up. Maybe the Funhouse in the morning, or the Squares coming up, or who knows? Whatever it is, Saturday with Stephen and Simon. Who knows? Whenever this goes up, I'm recording it on Thursday, so let's pretend it's the Funhouse with Martin. So enjoy that, and I'll see you very soon on a Monsters Den, if not the next Monsters Den. But I'll see you regardless. Thanks, folks. Take care.